Hello, this is Nicole Boyces, and I am doing my topic on when does grief become a deviant behavior. Let's move on to the next slide. Okay, introduction. So, put a little nice picture up there, beautiful view, and as many Christian believers and those who believe in God know the quote John 3:16, "For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believes in him should not perish but have everlasting life." Those were God's promises to us. As long as we believe in him, that we will have everlasting life. We will not just perish, we will live in his kingdom, the heavenly kingdom of perfect. Everything's perfect. So, every individual at one point in their life will be faced with death of a loved one and the grief that accompanies such a loss. That's important because many people won't experience it soon. Many will experience it 20 years, 30 years down the road. Or some people experience it at a young age. Grief symptoms can emerge from losses other than death of a loved one. For example, that can fall from, a pet. That can fall from just a best friend departure. That can fall from friendships, relationships. Nothing that has to do anything with death. But for this PowerPoint, it will be about the passing of a loved one. So, grief. What is grief? According to Warden, grief refers to the personal experience to loss. Grief is how one takes and reflects on the loss of a loved one and how they come out on their personal experience about it. So what comes with grief? On these slides, and in this present PowerPoint presentation, is going to talk about bereavement-related adjustment disorder and prolonged grief, and newly discovered prolonged grief disorder. Now those two are very similar. They play the role of how grief becomes a deviant behavior, which will be discussed a couple slides down. So, when is the expression of grief considered deviant? Grief becomes a deviant behavior when society has set standards on a grieving individual by placing a time frame of grief along with a proper time for it to mourn. So it's basically saying that we're allowed to be sad, we're allowed to, grieve, but with societies, their standards and setting that will follow with proof into the analysis and to the findings throughout these slides, is that you're allowed to grieve, but at the same time, it has to be at this time frame, and it can only be in this area, in this place. You can't do it between, this many months, or after a certain time, and you can't do it here, and then that's how it falls into a deviance, and then I'll explain that later. So, according to Clinard, the textbook for the class, he describes deviant as deviant events take many forms, but all such events violate some norm. Potentially, therefore, people could commit as many deviant events as they could find norms to violate. So, in the textbook, we learned that deviant behaviors come in two forms, formal and informal. Formal being what goes against the law, and informal goes against this slide, which is grief. It's not against a lot of grief. You're allowed to grieve. It's what falls after that, which falls into the informal deviant behavior. So, bereavement-related adjustment disorder. Bereavement-related adjustment disorder is defined as persistent yearning or preoccupation with the deceased for at least 12 months after the death. So a whole year after someone passes away, and if you don't get over that death and you can't move forward, they consider that a disorder. And that's bereavement-related adjustment disorder. So much evidence indicates that most bereaved individuals reach a sense of acceptance of the reality of the loss, such that by 6 to 12 months. So in that 6 to 12 months, based on evidence and studies, that people get over the loss and they move on with their lives and they accept it and they go. But for those who do not, they fall into the bereavement-related adjustment disorder. So approximately 10 to 15% of bereaved people may develop PGD. Now what is PGD? Prolonged grief, or also known as prolonged grief disorder after a certain time frame. And that's what we're going to get to in the next slide. So the dangers of prolonged grief. Prolonged grief disorder, which is defined as persistent and severe yearning for the deceased, and can be associated with difficulty accepting the death feelings of loss of a part of oneself, anger about the loss, guilt or blame regarding the death, or difficulty in engaging with new social or other activities due to the loss. That's pretty long. But what it's basically saying is that it's a disorder that after a certain amount of time, let's go ahead and get into that right now. Diagnostic criteria. Beyond 6 months after the death leads to function disturbance. So after 6 months, after someone dies, if you're not over the death, you haven't moved on and back to normal from your life, it's considered a disorder at this point. It's a prolonged grief disorder. Much evidence shown that people who meet criteria for PGD are characterized by occupational and social functioning. So they have trouble, going to social functions. Suicide being the biggest, the worst case scenario. Interpersonal functioning, function with oneself. Impaired sleep, trouble sleeping, which falls into poor health behaviors, such as bad eating, weight gain, hospital, and even such as increase of drug and alcohol abuse, falling into drugs and alcohol abuse, which can fall into overdosing and suicide. Across studies, approximately 50 to 70% of individuals with post-grief meet criteria for major depression. So that's post-grief. So post-grief, not just post-grief disorder, just post-grief, 50 to 70% people within those 6 months fall into a major depression. Now, after that 6 months, you think it's that depression should slash and now it's a disorder? No, that's carried on with the disorder. So now, not only are you depressed, we're labeling you as a prolonged disorder. Society's labeling you saying, hey, now you're a disorder. So literature review quote. So failing to recover from grief reveals that difficulties people have in detaching from the deceased people, and that's blurring the modern divide between life and death. When we fail to recover, it takes on to the individual from detaching. So because we can't recover, we never detach and separate that line of life and death. So we can move forward and understand, as a religious viewpoint, they're going to be okay. I know where they're going. It's going to be safe, but I got to keep going with my life. And a lot of people have that. But a lot of people are atheists who, are sad, and it's like, that's it. They're gone forever. They're dead. I'm never going to see them again. And they mourn. So, for my methodology, I took to Facebook, because that's a huge, major platform, especially in my small town. So social media, took to a social media survey. My survey consisted of 14 questions about grieving. These questions consisted of yes and no personal view questions on grief, and then true or false religious viewpoint questions. I had 111 participants, and it was a 7-hour open survey. So my analysis. How and how long is it acceptable to grieve? Is there a right way to grieve? 91% said no, there's not a right way to grieve. You just grieve how you want to grieve. Yet, or at the same time, they said it's appropriate length to grieve, however long it takes. The majority said however long it takes. There's no right way to do it, however long it takes. So, social media grief. Is it okay to use social media? Grieve using social media? 88% people said, yeah, go ahead and grieve on social media. That's fine. Now, do you feel uncomfortable when you see people posting on social media? As 88% people said, go ahead and grieve. 9% of people said, yeah, I feel uncomfortable about it. And now it's personally, do you feel comfortable using social media to grieve? As much as say it's okay to use social media to grieve, yes. A lot of people said, more than the majority of votes said, no, I don't feel comfortable using social media to grieve. And that just shows that even though society's saying it's okay to do it, it's okay to do it, you don't want to do it, but then society is also saying, but wait, it's under a certain term you're allowed to do it. Out of that, less than 6 months, and yes, there's a right way to grieve. Say it is. Grieving in public. So is it okay to grieve in public? 94% said, yeah, it's okay to grieve in public. Do you feel comfortable grieving in public? But the majority of the vote said no. So yes, it's okay to grieve in public, but not me. Not me. I'm not going to do it, but you can go ahead and do it. But because we feel like we can't do it, we feel like other people are going to be against us doing it. Like if we grieve, then we're going to look bad upon, because that's how we feel that we're being interpreted. And do you feel uncomfortable when you see people grieving in public? And 79% said, no, I don't feel uncomfortable grieving in public. But do you feel comfortable when someone else is grieving, when you or someone is grieving in your house, yes, they feel comfortable. But 27% said no. So they're saying yes, I don't feel uncomfortable you grieving in public, but you grieve in my house, then I feel uncomfortable. When a house is a home and people who come to your home are people who love and care for, and you should be able to be open and express whatever you feel. It's your home. You don't care about strangers because you don't care about your home. So faith and grief are two separate things. We had a true and false. God and grief. Does grief mean that you're not with God? Almost 100% said, almost 100% said false. It means that with God that you do. That grieving does not mean you're with God. And then do you believe that when you die you go to heaven? 83% said true, 16% said false. So heaven and grief. If you grieve, does that mean you're unsure about God in heaven? Almost 100% of people said false. So there's that percent that said true. Now this religious viewpoint falls at this point. I feel like this is where you take atheists and you take people who are spiritual, have that connection with God. If you grieve, does that mean you think that the passing individual is not going to heaven? If you grieve, does that mean you think that the passing individual is not going to heaven? False and true. So just a couple percentage off. So a couple people said true that didn't say true in the first part, but said true in the second part. Interesting. So in our conclusion, with a time frame of grief, this leaves individuals stressed without proper coping mechanisms. So when we put a time frame on people when they're grieving, this leaves them stressed that I need to get over this and I need to be back to normal by these 6 to 12 months. No, not only am I hurting from losing the person that I absolutely love and adore in this world, I'm depressed, I'm sad, I'm trying to find coping. I can't open up and talk to people about it because society doesn't want me to. Society says it's okay to grieve, but it's not okay to grieve. You can go in my house, but you can't grieve in my house. You have to put on the smile and pretend to be happy, but in reality, your world seems like completely lost. So unable to grieve over social media or in person due to society's standards sets a prolonged grief disorder and bereavement-related adjustment disorder. So those two, as previous sites mentioned, how prolonged and bereavement both lead to depression, both lead to social functioning, interpersonal functioning, and how both of those give a time frame of 6 months. So how is this grief deviant? So like I said, prolonged and bereavement. How does this make grief deviant? Because depression can lead to drugs and alcohol and ultimately suicide in our neighborhoods and in our city, in our community. Suicide of our family and friends, because we as a society are not letting people understand that, hey, you can grieve whenever you want. You can grieve in my home, you can grieve at the store. It's not wrong because it's you. You do what you have to do to feel better, and I'm going to be here to support you. But it's not like that. It's saying you do what you have to do, but stay away from me, or on my time frame, on our time frame, you're allowed to do these things. And this amount of time you need to get over and move on. And that's one of the major problems. These can include deterioration in general appearance, in your hygiene, disruption in eating and sleeping patterns, and substance abuse. Here's letting you know right there that it's statistically proven. And failing to recover from grief reveals the difficulties people have in detaching from deceased people. Like once again, it's a very strong thing that when we fail to recover from grief, this reveals the difficulties people have. So not only are you depressed, you're having trouble, dividing your loved one off this world. You're being labeled as a disorder. You need this time frame to hurry up and do all these things. And this is why people are depressed. This is how drug abuse happens. This is how suicide happens. We will all grieve someday. Every individual at one point in life will be faced with the death of a loved one. And that grief that accompanies such a loss. As atheists who believe that the deceased is gone forever, believers that there's more than this. They assert that there is more than this. And having that located in the more in God, strive to live according into the divine will. As long as we believe in God, we know that we're going to be okay. We have everlasting life. So this cat rephrasing on our works cited. Grief become a disorder, deviant behavior when it's not properly taken care of, and we just let it slide across the board. Thank you.